Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Doing another take of the video that I wanted to put out originally. The last guy kicked me in the balls and made a run down Pfeiffer's Lane. He knew I was too fat to catch him, the bastard. Anyway, in all seriousness, second take of the video. And basically, I want to talk about the traitor party, Labour Party. Or again, maybe I was right first time. And I also want to talk a little bit about wanting this debate with Paul Thorpe, or I'll even extend it to Richard Inman. I'll happily do that. Two men of strong convictions, and I'm not talking about the time where I stole a club bar from Asda. But these two are good men, good intentions, and unfortunately, you know what they say, the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. But I'll happily debate the pair of them, because I believe we have polar opposite beliefs as far as whether or not we can end this upcoming war with Keir the traitor Starmer and his traitor party peacefully. There's no question of a doubt in my mind. These two are probably better men than I ever will be. And I'm not afraid to admit that. That's the thing. I may not be all there. I may have a few screws loose. But I know when I can admit my wrongs. I've done it before, I'll say it here again, and one prime example to prove a point. I called the elections general election when it was actually the local elections, not the general ones. Though I wouldn't put it past Keir, the traitor Starmer, to delay the general elections as well, the fucking prick. Because after all, think about it. What reason has Keir the traitor Starmer got to delay the local elections? Well, I can think of three primary reasons why he would do that. The biggest one, and the most obvious one, is the Southport cover-up with Axel the child murderer Radakabana, the guy who literally went and stabbed 3 beautiful girls to death. I feel for them, I really do. God rest their souls. And the maggot even went on to stab 7 more people, including teachers. The man had ricin in his home. He had an Al-Qaeda training manual in his home. But apparently we're supposed to take it from the mainstream media and the crooked 2-tier police, or maybe I was right first time, that this was not a terror-related incident, where only people with single-digit IQ would ever be able to buy the BBC or the mainstream media's bullshit. There have been countless people who have come out and said the man was a Muslim, and they were constantly told that they were spreading misinformation. They were told that they could face arrest by putting out misinformation, that they would be deemed as far right. Yet I put this to you. What religion goes out of their way to kill homosexuals for having a relationship with another guy, for being caught buggering another man? You hear that? That's because there's no other religion other than Islam that does that. They like to throw them off of buildings or stone them to death. In Islam, they believe it's okay to beat your wife. They believe that women are second-class citizens. And kafir, kafar, kerfuffle, or whatever you want to call them, should be treated with the utmost contempt, and you are not to make friends with them. So you can see why it adds up why Radakabana would murder these children. His guilt is unequivocal, because a substantial number of witnesses have seen him kill those kids. They cannot go out of their way and say, oh, you know what, he had mental health issues, so he's not guilty. No, he is 100% guilty. And I will assume guilt. You know why? Because it's clear as crystal. I mean, first and foremost, the fact that there were survivors of this attack who could clearly see Radakabana, who is supposed to be this Welsh choir boy, and they kept on showing us a picture of his beautiful child photo, and I say that obviously with sarcasm. Who would dare do such a thing? Who would dare accuse this boy of going out and murdering 3 kids? The other reason I'm saying this shit is because I literally have nothing to lose. And I mean that. The only thing I have now is a computer and a roof over my head. That's it. And there's only one thing more dangerous than a terrorist, and that is a man or woman with nothing to lose. Now, if it was a bit more, I don't know, if it was more in the realms of, well, it could be grey, it could be yellow or green or purple, like, for example, if nobody actually saw him kill anyone, if nobody actually saw him take the lives of them, and yet there was evidence linking him to it, but we weren't 100% sure, then yeah, I could understand not wanting to presume guilt. But the truth is, Radakabano killed those 3 kids, and there were dozens of witnesses to see this. But of course, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. Well, guess what? He decided he's not showing up for trial. What a coincidence. Apparently he vomited and he was feeling unwell. Oh, boo fucking who. I don't give a shit if he's contracted malaria in England. That child-killing scum needs to stand on trial. I guarantee you, if we reverse the roles and it was a white person who'd killed 3 Muslim girls, I guarantee you they would not allow any excuses for that killer to be in jail and not facing trial. So it stands to reason why this child-murdering Radakabana needs to be up in the dock. We, the British people, want to see justice for those 3 beautiful girls who got stabbed. We want to see justice served against this Islamic terrorist, because that's what he is, for going out of his way to do the most abominable thing that you can possibly do. But then I suspect the Criminal Protection Service, the Criminal Prosecution Service, or again, maybe I was right first time, I suspect they and the government are going to kick the can down the road. And there goes my 8 hot dogs. Anyway, they're going to kick this down the road because they don't want Radakabana to face trial. They want to kick this down the road as long as possible. Because the cold, bitter truth is, the moment the truth comes out about the Southport cover-up, Keir the traitor Starmer's career is over. Just like that. There is no way Keir the traitor Starmer will be able to survive the Southport cover-up. There is no way on God's given earth he will manage to withstand the relentless assault from the MPs and the people. It turns out Keir the traitor Starmer is already cracking as it is because of the way his voice trembled and how agitated he was getting when he was told by a journalist, why doesn't he apologise to the pensioners that he's robbed the 300 quid of, the winter fuel payment. Instead, this despicable little cockroach decided he was going to blame the Tories for the supposed £22 billion black hole, which does not fucking exist. But that's the thing with Keir the traitor Starmer. He takes absolutely zero responsibility for anything. This man has about as much integrity in him as a condemned TP. The way I look at it, Keir the traitor Starmer and me are polar opposites. Keir the traitor Starmer, actually no, I'll start with me first. I may be financially all but bankrupt, but I tell you what, I've got moral integrity and principles that far outnumber and outclass anything that Keir the traitor Starmer has. While Keir the traitor Starmer has all the finances in the world, but he has about as much moral integrity, as I said, like that condemned TP. He is completely morally bankrupt. And I will give credit for once to one SNP member in the Houses of Treachery, Parliament, or yet again, maybe I was right first time, called Dave Dugan, who decided he was going to have the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually call Keir the traitor Starmer out, calling him a one-trick phony. To which Keir the traitor Starmer could only come out with such a pathetic retort, you'd almost think he was back on a school playground, basically saying, oh, we could hear them back in the past, but now he's all the way up there with not as many people, we can barely hear him now. Total pathetic nonsense from the traitor. The thing is, Keir the traitor Starmer is only good for one thing and one thing only: deflection. Or projection, sorry, so that's two things. But those are the only two arts he has down to a fine tea, much like most politicians in the houses of treachery. Oh, and speaking of Keir the traitor Starmer, I want to take this quick moment to link in the description below my petition that I've restarted since I couldn't get a response from them at change.org about my appeal on the other one. But I will be linking in the description below my new petition. I'm hoping to get this a lot higher in signatures rather than like 20 or something. Because at the end of the day, Keir the traitor Starmer has unequivocally committed multiple crimes, both against individuals and, of course, the nation. He has first and foremost committed a crime in breach of Article 8 of the Human Rights Act, when Tommy Robinson wasn't allowed to have his visitation and wasn't even allowed to breathe this God-given air. Of course, I accept that's probably more the responsibility of the prison officers, but it doesn't change the fact while nearly having a stroke there, while Keir the traitor Starmer isn't exactly responsible for managing Tommy Robinson personally, he is responsible for the conditions that he's supposed to face as far as the prisons in general is concerned. He could have overturned some of the nonsense that Tommy Robinson was going through, but he chose not to. He chose not to get involved. So Tommy Robinson's sitting there basically languishing. He hasn't been given the right to a dignified and private life. So he's breached that, of course, on top of the fact that he also breached the Fraud Act, where he basically didn't fill out his personal address on the electoral form. So basically, he falsified his address, so he shouldn't have ever been allowed to be elected as Prime Minister in the first place. I mean, it's unequivocal, and don't just take my word for it. Keir the traitor Starmer even said that he went up to Lord Ali's manor so his child, his son, could study his GCSEs in peace. So, straight from the horse's mouth. And he did not fill in his proper personal home address. Make of that what you will. Then, of course, we come to Article 3 of the Human Rights Act, which he breached, because he could have actually done something about Tommy Robinson only living off of cans of tuna every day while he's in prison. Bearing in mind as well, just as a side note, Tommy is a Cat D prisoner, and he's being put in a Cat C and was originally in a Cat B or A prison through HMP Belmarsh. But again, the mainstream media is not going to tell you this because it doesn't suit the narrative. But he could have done something about Tommy Robinson not getting the right nutrition. That means he's not being treated with dignity. In fact, it is tantamount to torture. Therefore, he is breaching Article 3 of the Human Rights Act. And then we come to Article 10 of the Human Rights Act, which is the right to free speech and the freedom to protest. And this will specifically relate to Peter Lynch, God rest his soul. The man who went out of his way to attend Southport protests, and he shouted at police. That was his only crime. He shouted at police, saying to them that they were protecting the people who were coming to our country and killing and raping our children. He got arrested for that. Bearing in mind, he did not participate in the violence, he did not participate in looting, he did not participate in criminal damage, and he did not incite violence or basically encourage people to commit crimes. He merely shouted at the police. Therefore, they did not arrest him lawfully. They breached his human rights. They breached Article 10, his right to protest. Keir the traitor Starmer could have stopped the court process. He could have gone out of his way to say, you know what, you need to release Peter Lynch now, because he has not committed any crime. In fact, you have actually breached his human rights. And of course they couldn't do that, because then that would mean Peter Lynch would sue them. So, of course, he had to get sent to prison for it, where he ended up committing suicide. The poor bastard. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I apologise. The poor soul. But that's basically what I think of it right now. Keir the traitor Starmer has unequivocally committed those crimes, and then on top of all that, there's what I mentioned in the past as well, which is that Keir the traitor Starmer has sent £11 million off to terrorists in Syria, while the Labour Party themselves have sent off another 50 million of our taxpayer money, which could have easily gone out of their way to fund the houses of about 1 million pensioners. But he would rather give our money to the enemy, when we are already borrowing as a country with trillions of pounds of debt. He's raising inheritance tax, raising our energy bills, screwing over the elderly at Christmas. Hell, something that people haven't already told you, that you may not have heard at all yet, is there's already been a pensioner that was living in a tent out on the street that has already died on the back of this. We're housing thousands, hundreds of thousands of third world shithole barbarians, illegal immigrants, that have no legal or human right to be here, in 4-star hotels, giving them 3 square meals a day, giving them a mobile phone, and there's even rumours going around they're even being provided weapons. But they can't, they will house them, but they won't house our pensioners or our war veterans. We have over 300,000 people who are living homeless on the streets, and some of these people may end up dead before the winter is out. Keir the traitor Starmer has about as much legitimacy being in power as I have legitimacy to being Mr. Fitness. But of course, a lot of people are still fast asleep. They're still blue-pilled, like the Matrix. They are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. We need to give these people the red pill. We need to wake them up. Because at the end of the day, Keir the traitor Starmer must be held responsible for all of his crimes against the people as well as the nation. Funding terrorism, breaching human rights, blood on his hands through the murder of Peter Lynch and the pensioners, and of course, he is also guilty of fraud. But as said, the mainstream media won't tell you this, and that light is really blinding my fucking eyes, Jesus Christ. But that's the bottom line with Keir the traitor Starmer. He is unequivocally guilty of all of this, as is his Labour Party. So I don't think just getting rid of Keir the traitor Starmer is the answer anymore. Because the Labour Party has shown they're willing to fund terrorism in Syria, it stands to reason now, I think the only hope we have is basically to get rid of the whole of Labour. We need a general election, which is why we need to keep pushing for that election. Force them to give us an election. That is practically our last chance of a peaceful resolution. And if it doesn't happen in the next 2 to 3 months, then the only option left, which I do not advocate for, want or justify, the only way we'll get them out of power is if the government is overthrown. I don't like saying that shit. I don't like saying it full stop. But the bottom line is, what we've been doing, which Paul Thorpe and Richard Inman, to their credit, have been trying to do, is they've been calling for peace. But at this point, we've been banging our heads against a brick wall repeatedly. I should be surprised that we all haven't got the same shade of red on our heads right now. Remember Hitler? He went to war. He wouldn't listen to us when we told him, if you invade, we're going to war. Keir the traitor Starmer is following the exact same direction that Adolf Hitler went. And remind yourselves of this, like I said in the manifesto book, Adolf Hitler was not far right. He was actually a far left socialist. So remind yourself that when they refer to Nazis, they are actually referring to the Germans as rednecks, which in and of itself is pretty racist. And they basically, the Germans of this socialist party, of this socialist group were trying to invade us to force their left-wing socialism on us. And what is Keir the traitor Starmer? Say it with me. A socialist. Therefore, it's not too far-fetched to compare Starmer, maybe I should call him Stalin though. It's not far-fetched to compare Keir the traitor Starmer to Adolf Hitler. The only thing that's left is he didn't commit mass genocide, or try to commit mass genocide of Jews. Well, all he needs to do is go into an interview cubicle and fart in it, and there you go, you've got a gas chamber. Anyway, he hasn't committed war crimes yet, but he has committed the fundamental error of funding terrorism. So you could arrest Keir the traitor Starmer on that, as I've said before. But as said, the media won't tell you that, because that just doesn't go with their narrative, with the globalist Marxist agenda that they're pushing, and of course socialism, more than anything. Oh, here we go, I can bloody see it already. I think this is another one of those bloody tannoy systems. It was actually rather quiet. Went off just as I had this pause while I was putting my wallet away. Anyway, Keir the traitor Starmer has to pay for what he's done. And a bit like those BBC TV licensing adverts, pay now, or you'll pay later, Keir the traitor Starmer. Mark my words on that. So I guess I better move on to Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe, because I've mentioned it quite a few times now that I would be open to have a debate with these two people, or one of them, or both at the same time. I don't care. And it's not just so that there's obviously the fame in it, because obviously it'll boost my channel. But that's not the real reason why I'm doing it. The real reason I'm doing it is because I want this debate in the open. I want this debate with people of principle and integrity, which is something that Keir the traitor Starmer, as I've clearly said, clearly lacks. Paul Thorpe and Richard Inman, as I've said, are far better people than I. They will always be better men than I will be. Not just because they look better than me, but because they have better principles than I do, I suspect. After all, I have all but given up on the peaceful resolution. I want it. Let me be clear, I want a peaceful resolution. But the cold, bitter truth is, I think we're past the point of peaceful resolution. You cannot talk to people who just won't see reason, in my humble opinion. Keir the traitor Starmer is more interested in playing the blame game. Blame the Tories, blame the far right, blame Tom, Dick and Harry for kicking a ball about or something. He's not interested in taking accountability. He's taken about as much accountability as I have for calories. He's done fuck all about it. But I'm more than happy to have this debate with those two, or one at a time, I don't care. As said, because I want to see our opinions out in the open. Those two fundamentally believe that we can still end this peacefully with this dictator, or yet again, maybe I was right first time, that is Keir the traitor Starmer. They still believe that we can end this peacefully. I am of the belief that we cannot speak to him because he just doesn't want to listen. It goes in one ear and out the other. Mainly because there's nothing in between those ears of his. It's just some oxymoron in there. Anyway, I want to see the debate happen. Maybe I'll come off worse off for it, for all I know. But I'm willing to take that risk. I'm willing to take the risk of almost certain humiliation. I've been doing it for the last 6 fucking years. To have this debate with Paul Thorpe and Richard Inman. They can put their opinions out there, I can put mine out there. We could even talk about the pledge, because I still haven't signed that, because I don't want to sign myself onto something that potentially is legally binding, or says that I will absolutely 100% commit to a path, even though I'm not quite ready for it. Like, if I 100% knew we could get a peaceful resolution, maybe I'd sign it. But the truth is, I don't think we're going to get a peaceful resolution out of this. Keir the traitor Starmer is making peaceful resolution impossible. Therefore, it stands to reason why violent revolution is now all but inevitable. If I'm wrong, Paul Thorpe, Richard Inman, directly addressing you now, if I'm wrong about this, tell me. I want to have this debate with you two. I want you to prove me wrong. Prove that we can actually get a net positive out of this. Because I just don't see it right now. I think the only way this is going to end is either with violence on the streets or an overthrown government. As I've said, and I will be clear on this yet again, I do not want it, I do not advocate for it, I do not condone it, and I will not justify it. But I will completely understand if people decide to go down that route because they feel they have no other option. There's a very big difference between sympathising and understanding. And I am of the understanding side. I won't show sympathy to anybody who decides, yeah, let's overthrow the government. But I will understand why they've done it. Because Keir the traitor Starmer and his traitor party have single-handedly done in months what other treacherous bastards could not have done over the last 4 decades. Perhaps you could even say 5 or 6 decades. Every single time Labour has come to power, they have seriously harmed this country. Every single time. Gordon, the bullion blundering Brown, and of course Tony the war criminal Blair. 2 prime examples of 2 Europhiles who have absolutely harmed our country, who have damaged this country to such an extent that it has changed the course of Britain. And right now, Keir the traitor Starmer is looking to get us rejoined back into the EU. He's even signed a fucking backdoor deal with the EU to try and get us to rejoin them, overturning the vote of 17.4 million people. How much longer does this go on? How much longer do we tolerate this? Do you honestly think that a man like that can be reasoned with? Do you honestly think that man gives a shit about Britain? Well, do you? Because I think he doesn't care at all. He is merely doing what his WEF masters have asked him to do. All this while pushing a 2-tier justice, 2-tier police, 2-tier media, and 2-tier government policy. He has sided with Islam. That makes him a sectarianist bastard. He has decided that he wants to try and suspend the local elections. It may not be full-fledged denial, but it still doesn't change the fact that that is tantamount to unequivocal fascism. He wants to control who can speak out, who can have a chat with him, who is able to have that election. It's fascism. There is no way in God's earth that you can say that Keir the traitor Starmer isn't a fascist. And there's also no way you can say he's not a sectarianist. It's as simple as that. This is why I don't think we can end this peacefully with a treacherous snake like Keir the traitor Starmer. I think the only way this ends is out on the streets or with an overthrown government. And I cannot stress enough how much I don't want that. Something's got to give. The way I look at it, if we keep going down on this railway track, there's only 1 or 2 ways this is going to go. Either Britain's going to get destroyed, or Britain's going to get reclaimed. And if we keep down this path, Britain's going to get destroyed. Fundamental belief of that. But if we take over, if we get Keir the traitor Starmer out of power, and the whole of Labour, maybe we can have a chance. I accept that maybe Reform have a far better chance of getting into power. But a lot of people are already saying that they are controlled opposition. A lot of people are saying that Nigel Farage, including myself, that Nigel Farage is doing this for power, money, and titles. I mean, the way I look at it, I don't think Farage is the be-all and end-all. Sorry to burst your bubble on that. Even though Elon Musk has decided to back Reform, I think he's made a mistake, personally. I think he's made a very big mistake backing Reform. I think he should have backed UKIP, because Nick Tenconi is more than willing. He's got the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually support the people of Britain, even if they're part of that lot, as Richard Tice refers to us as. I think Nick Tenconi would have gained far more benefit from that and far more traction than what Nigel Farage has. But I do suspect that Nigel Farage has a better chance of getting into the Prime Minister position than Nick Tenconi does. I will say that much. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but we can have a debate on that as well, if necessary. That's the thing. And I will, as always, in every single video I've done for the last, 2 or 3 months, I will be putting my email in the description below, so that you know where to find me. You can contact me there. I am trying to respond to all the people who have sent me emails and kind words and what have you. So I do look at my emails. It just sometimes doesn't look like I am, that's all. But I am responding as best I can. And I do hope that this petition that I've done is going to get much higher, and it's going to get much more traction than the other one did. But that all depends upon change.org, whether or not they're going to suppress me again. Because at the end of the day, Keir the traitor Starmer should be held accountable. And I think if Keir the traitor Starmer was arrested, not only would it restore some confidence in the law and the justice system, it would also send a shockwave across the country. And it would tell them that nobody is above the law, not even Keir the traitor Starmer himself. And I know there are going to be some people who say, well, we have the Magna Carta. Well, if we have the Magna Carta, why the fuck hasn't he been arrested yet? Ask yourselves that. He's taking the piss out of us. He is taking the mickey. Time to take away his freedom. Time to take out the trash and place it in the dustbin of history. He must face a court of law. And I don't care if it has to be the Supreme Court. I really don't care. But that man must be sent down, because there is no way that we will send the right message to the traitor party unless we do so. So what's it going to be, Britain? This is our one chance to take back the country. If we don't, there's only 1 or 2 ways it ends, as I said. And I tell you right now, if on the off chance I ever have kids, I want them to have a future as well. But I don't see that happening under this guy's regime. You can either fight for your country, or you can just sit there in apathy and let thousands of hard-working years be for nothing. The choice is yours.